So welcome to the Names of Devi. You're looking here at the Sri Chakra, which is a yantra that is said to incarnate the very essence of the great goddess. What I'm going to be sharing with you here is looking at the complexity of layers and waves to goddess veneration in India, the earth goddess in the Vedic scriptures, and really interesting linguistic traces that we can follow. The historical linguists have shown that this name derives from the same root as Greek Plataia, and both of these names mean the broad one, the breadth of earth extending in all directions. And so earth far spreading, Bhumi Devi. There's some interesting philosophical concepts in the Vedic tradition, and this goes to some of the really core Indo-European traditions that have to do with the sky, the sun, movement of the sun around the quadrants, especially at the dawn point, but the dawn maidens all moving in this circle, which is the divine law of Urta, or sometimes you'll see it written as Urtam. And so we see by the ordinance of Urta, the heaven-born dawn was lighted. Urtam Satyam Vijnani. Urta is knowing truth. We can see in Egyptian cosmology, you have Ma'a. In Chinese cosmology, you have Dao. In Germanic, you have Weird. And there are these different ways of conceiving of the primeval natural law, the order of things that is embedded in nature, that truth to be found in nature. So dawn, Ushas or Usha, is a goddess in the Vedas, particularly I think the Rig Veda, who is described as the guardian of Urtam. Here it says horses are yoked to truth, but this is modern picture, and instead they've got cows. But this very much ties in with dawn imagery from other Indo-European cultures. And so Eos also drives a chariot. I'm going to have that in my next book. And Lithuanian Ausrine, also you've got the idea of the goddess Soleil driving a chariot. So these are elements that are predating the splitting off of all the Indo-European peoples. And there's a lot of beautiful hymns to dawn. So now I'm going back to ancient times, and the bulk of what I'm going to be looking at in this next whole section starts around 300 BCE and over the next 500 years. And we have these mysterious ringstones that are carved out of very heavy rock with this opening in the center. It's been compared to a vaginal opening, this idea of origination, creation emerging from this. It may have also been where libation was poured through. The main motif of these ringstones is a goddess who's very resonant with forms of Devi, but especially Lakshmi, as we'll see, because she has these trees. She's between trees or sometimes flowering plants. She's holding her hands out in the gesture of giving. She's manifesting essence. Sometimes you have these possible star symbols going all the way around the ringstone. Here she is with a tree that has been identified by some as the honeysuckle. And this whole idea of fragrance and sweetness and nectar is very much part of Lakshmi, or another aspect of hers, Sri Devi, which means the blessed goddess. She's like the source, the one who pours out nectar. And so there are a lot of these, and it took me decades to get photographs of them. Here you've got something very similar to the palmate symbol of the tree of life that we see in Western Asia, in ancient Syrian and Phoenician and Israelite culture, Canaanite culture. You'll also see her with birds and animals. See the same gesture over and over again. We're definitely looking at a whole cultural theme. And what's interesting with this one is we saw on the Indus seal the goddess standing inside the tree and grasping its branches. And here we're seeing this. I don't have a picture, unfortunately, of the full ringstone, but this is a close-up of it. And she's standing on the lotus, kind of butterfly wings coming out from her there too. So this numinous goddess that is full of life force, either among or within the trees. Dancers, dancing women going all around the inside, and frolicking animals in the next layer. And again, I think these are star symbols, and they recur. So in a way, you're looking at the worlds. You've got the heavenly worlds and the earthly worlds, and then this core, perhaps the entry to the underworld and to the vastness, that yoni seat of creation. And we also see circular forms with a goddess I'm just going to call Lakshmi. This is at the stupa at Sanchi. So this is around 300, 200 BCE, some of the very earliest stone temples that we find in India. a goddess with the flowering plants in her hand. She's surrounded by them. She's standing on the lotus. Again, standing on the lotus. This certainly is Lakshmi, because one of the motifs that becomes the most prominent of her in this old sculpture is called Gaja Lakshmi, the Lakshmi of the elephants. They are pouring waters. They're standing around her and they're pouring water, in this case from vessels, but other times from their trunks. She is the goddess who is drenched in vital essence. And in all cases, she's seated or standing on the lotus, which is before Buddha is shown sitting on a lotus. We see this goddess motif. It originates with her. And there is this take up of some of the older traditions out of the core Indic traditions that Buddhism is drawing on. And Chandraketugarh is a very important site in West Bengal where a lot of this art has been found. These are mold made, they're mass produced. So people are probably buying them at temples to take home and use as devotional altars. Most of these images from Chandraketugarh and the other sites in Bengal are nature divinities, and they're often referred to as yakshi or yakshini, which means a forest goddess, a goddess of trees. So the tree is actually growing out of her body. Her braids are like fiery, and sometimes she's winged herself, but always the flowering plants around her. And Yakshi, the forest goddess, these forest goddesses are something that we know of even from modern times among the Adivasi peoples, the Aboriginal peoples in India. This is the primary theme in the iconography. It's not really, we're not looking at images of Durga or Kali that we can really identify it. There's some shared attributes with Durga, but they're really having to do with these nature goddesses. Here's another one with the wings, because the flowers in the forests are all there. And this is an indigenous core that really influences the whole development of goddess veneration in India, is that at the foundation among the original peoples, there is this emphasis on the divine female manifest through nature. And this in turn influences the Vedic culture. And you have the emergence of goddesses who are not named in the Vedas, who take on elements of these very ancient substratum. Here we've got one that clearly would be Lakshmi. And the whole thing has been rubbed with red kumkum, the vermilion that represents the life-giving blood of the mother and also of goddess. Occasionally you will find also stone sculptures with the same emphasis. And here, the life giver aspect, she's got a bird that she's giving the breast to. The other hand is holding greenery, fronds of greenery. In these sculptures of yakshis under flowering trees or hanging off trees, leaning on them, pulling on branches of them. Another name in addition to yakshi that you'll find, which is salabhaniyika, the woman who is pulling on the sal tree. And this is really important because this sal tree is something that is still intensely sacred to indigenous people in India. This is part of the living traditions of goddess veneration that exist in Adivasi cultures, in the tribal cultures of India. These are people in Odisha that are celebrating the Sarhul festival, which is dedicated to the goddess of the grove. This is all something that has actually survived. This is my online course. The webcasts every month are included to subscribers to the course. It's $25 a month, and a lot of other materials.